Folks, hello, welcome to the end of the week. Congratulations, you've made it, you're there. You don't have to worry about going to work tomorrow, you're all good. And if you do need to worry about going to work tomorrow, then don't worry. I have been there, I know how you're feeling. Thank you for making the world go round and keep us spinning. Thank you very, very, very much for making sure we can all have some time off. If you like what I do, the subscribe button is down below. The Patreon button is also down below if you want to be involved in the prize draw on the 6th of August. Get yourself down there, and the prize draw will be taking place on Sunday the 6th of August, where we will be going over getting rid of £50 worth of free models from Composite Games and a Dark Angels Command box set, the Deathwing Knights box set, that will be getting sent out to our winners as well. So, if you want to be involved in that, make sure you sign up to the Patreon and aid the channel. Being a member of the channel also signs you up for that lovely prize draw. We're going to do one every single month, and on that prize draw there will also be a really long live stream, like a 2-3 hour, maybe even 4 hour live stream. That is for charity only, so that is for mental health charities mainly, and things like that. So yeah, make sure if you're not going to give to me, then make sure hopefully you can give to a charity at the end of the month, and we can get it into the hands of male mental health going forward. So moving on, Hobby Nightmares time. I have two today, one longer than the other, but hey, yeah, they should both be pretty simple. And to be honest with you, it has been a hell of a week. I dragged myself out of bed this morning. I was just done. I was tired, I was cranky, I just wanted to stay in bed. But hey, we're here now, let's get on with it, let's have some fun. So, Jolly Rich says, are you? Are you jolly and rich? Or are you Jolly Richard? Well, we don't know. Let's get into it, shall we? Hey North. Hey man. I just wanted to talk about my local hobby store manager. Okay. Always a bit more of a weird one when someone is coming in just with a straight up statement like that, but moving on. He's a bit of an overbearing chap. He is a Games Workshop manager here in the UK and simply will not allow his game store to be used unless we do two things. Number one, our games are under 500 points, and number two, our tables are booked at least a week in advance. A week in advance? Well, okay. So you can't play games in the store unless they're 500 points in a week in advance. He says this is because of demand, and to be honest, only 6 of us actually want to game in the store. And even then, there is capacity for 2 tables. He says he can only use space for 1, and he is never allowed to use the introduction board. He's right on that one, you're not. He also openly treats us with disdain if we do not buy anything from the store, and will badger us with unwanted conversations in which he thinks he is selling us stuff. In reality, we just want to be left alone to talk to fellow hobbyists or get on with our painting. He is now talking about having us booking in for painting slots of 1 hour each, limited to 2 hours per day per person, for any time spent painting in the store. It's getting a bit much, to be honest. There is another local hobby store, but I've never been there and don't really want to leave the friends group I have cultivated here. What do I do? Peace, Rich. Okay, so you've answered your own question. You mentioned there was another friendly local hobby store. Like literally, you've answered your own question, dude. Get over there. Go and. If you don't like your Games Workshop store, take your customs somewhere else if you have somewhere else to go to. You are in a very, very, very lucky position where you have another hobby store. Just tell this guy where to go. Take your friends, say to your friends, listen, why are we putting up with this? We got this other store to go to. Let's at least try it once. At least once. If you go and it's full of sweaty neckbeards, you don't like it, come back, no problem. But just try it the once and see. And if it sticks, problem solved. There, done. I will say, this guy is half right and half wrong. As in the Games Workshop manager, he is half right and half wrong. So, in terms of his introduction board, that is sacrosanct. He is not allowed to play any games on the introduction board that are not introduction games. That's simply how it is. No games on the introduction board that are not just for introductions. Absolutely not. Not allowed, okay? If somebody from head office walks in and sees him playing a game that is not an introduction game on the introduction board, that will be an official warning. Straight there. Done. Official warning. Okay? So, he's kind of right with that. I would have the same rule. Do not touch the introduction board, please. I'll say it to people all of the time. Do not touch the introduction board. Don't even stand around the introduction board. If you are a regular customer, you have the other 80% of the store in which you can walk around, play games and paint and see all your friends. The introduction board is the place where I greet new people coming into the hobby. If you're getting in the way of that, you are killing my business. Get away from the introduction board, right? Okay, cool. Secondly, in terms of him... Okay, so when I was working in Games Workshop, I did come across a manager like this during my training there. He joined just after me, so he joined the company just after me, and we were there in Nottingham doing a bit of training, and he was talking about his new store and how he was running his new store. And what he said is that he got rid of all of the gamers from his store, told them they weren't welcome, and if they wanted to come back, they had to play only 250 to 400 point games on a small 4x4 table, and they had to book them a week in advance. So this is seeming very, very, very familiar to me. And he was praised by my trainer, he was praised by other people in the group as, you know, oh my god, that's great, get rid of them out your store, dude, get rid of them, because they're just going to kill your store. And he would say that to me. He'd never been there, I'd been there longer than him, and he was like, oh, get rid of them from your store, mate, you're going to kill your store. And I was just like, no, dude, no, absolutely not. So you're telling me to get rid of 80% of my customer base because if they stay there, they're going to kill my store. No, mate, I'll tell you what's going to kill my store. Getting rid of 80% of my customer base. That's going to kill my store, right? I am a very, very small store compared to all of those other guys. If I got rid of 80% of my customers, my store dies. My store dies. And by the way, they did it the wrong way round. Cultivate, as you use the word cultivate, I like that word, right? Cultivate good regulars in your store. If you have time vampires, as we call them at Games Workshop, if you have people coming into your store and not buying anything, turning away other customers, smelly, obnoxious, angry, nerd gamers, right? If those people are in your store, yeah, get rid of those, no problem. But if you have decent nerds, decent geeks who come in, they love Warhammer, they come in, they play the games, they paint the models, they share their love for the hobby, they just have a laugh together, and it seems like everybody in the store is having a good time. Those are the people that you need to cultivate and get on your side. Get them on side, pull them aside if you need to and say, listen man, I really appreciate what you do for the store, you're really cool to have around, I just wanted to say that, you know, thank you very much. I used to give away things. I wasn't allowed to, but fuck it, I did. I would go and get if somebody was using a pot of paint all of the time, like they're painting loads of Ultramarines, or a friend or a guy who's in the store who's painting a lot of Raven Guard, and he was highlighting with Dawnstone, right? And he's running out of Dawnstone, so I lost a pot of Dawnstone, asked him to come aside with me. I told him, mate, you're doing a wonderful job in making sure the atmosphere in the store's awesome and brilliant. You're making my job easier. Here is a free pot of paint just for you, and just as a little thank you from me to you, right? That's free. Just take that with you. And he was like, oh my god, mate, no problem, mate. Anything I can do, just let me know, blah, blah. Because they're getting something for free from a Games Workshop manager. Do you realise how big that is? That is huge to them. They're like, oh my god, this guy's a legend. He's awesome. And he's helping me do my hobby. Don't do it all the time, right? But you known lost paints all the time to use in the store, right? Sometimes I would look out for those paints and I would known lost an extra one and give it away to that person if they're doing good shit in my store. And you know what? I tell them to keep it to themselves, don't tell anybody. But, like, you know, spread it around to other people in the store if you can. Just to, you know, let them know that if you do good behaviours in the store, if you help me run my store, if you get new people involved in the store and you spread word about my store, you will be taken care of. Cultivate those people, and the store will be fine. Absolutely fine. What he's doing here, he's gone to a training exercise, he's been told this nonsense by somebody else, he's gone back from a huge store, by the way. If you're running a store in London, or Birmingham, or Newcastle, or Liverpool, or Glasgow, or any one of these huge, not huge cities, but big cities in the UK, right? If you're running a store in one of those, especially around London, you can afford to get rid of all the gamers in your store and just have people shopping. You can afford that because of the foot traffic that's coming into your store. That's no problem. But if you run a small store, as this guy most likely does, and you get rid of around 80% of your customer base by throwing in shit like this, your store is going to die, you're going to get sacked, and you're going to wonder why, because you followed all of the advice. But this happened to so many people when I was working at Games Workshop. The only reason why I lasted as long as I did is because I ignored shit like this. Because it was not applicable to my store. If I was running a store in London, sure, no problem. The people who I thought were kind of not buying anything but were really good for the atmosphere, I would slowly move them on, because you need to make money in a big store like that. I'd replace them with customers, and I'd cultivate the really small core group of gamers who are really good shills, essentially, for getting people through the door, who just love Warhammer and want to help you run the store. That's fine. But for any other store that's not in a huge city or a big city or a regional head, right? Any other store, don't do this. Don't do this. Cultivate good people in your store. Cultivate good people coming in and helping you run it and building a community, and before you know it, you'll be swept off your feet with how busy you are. That's it. Okay, but don't do what this guy's doing. You are right in this, Rich, but there is a reason why he is acting the way that he is, even though it's a bit annoying. There is a reason why. Moving on to our second hobby nightmare today. Byron Templar says, Yo North, hey man. Bit of a heavy one to go over, I know, but I wanted to get this out there to someone who may be able to set me right. I've been in the hobby since I was 7, and I fell in love with Black Templars at the start of 3rd edition, as the Emperor's Champion came out around then, and it was just the coolest thing ever. Okay. The fact they redid it recently for the Primaris just threw me straight back into the Templars all over again, and I love it for that. Wonderful, wonderful stuff. When I was a teenager, I met my best friend, Will, an awesome dude who I gelled with on almost every level. Same taste in games, Warhammer, humour, and even women at the time. What, when you were 12? Oh, right, as a teenager. Okay, fair enough. As we grew, we fell into and out of the hobby together, having fun all the while. We even went to the same university later on, at the same age. We were both, sorry, I'm going to read that again. We were both mature students, and went to do the same degree course. That may seem weird, but we are really in tandem. Our mums basically told us that if we weren't straight, we'd have been soulmates. And I guess it's possible to have a friend soulmate, someone who is literally the yin to your yang and stuff, but in a non-homo way. Well, anyway, moving on. Yeah, I think it is possible. I think it's definitely possible to have a friend who, in another life, if they were like, I've had friends who, if they were female, I would probably have married them. Yes, a bit of a weird thing to think about, but it is true. Like you do have people who are technically your other half, but they're not your sexual preference, and they become your best friends. We had a great time at university, but I did notice as time went on, Will started to drift away from dating people to become more of a reclusive nerd than I was. I was definitely a geek in a big way, but I was at university, man. I'd go out partying and I'd sleep around and experiment with drugs and drink, the normal university fare for a young lad in his early 20s. We didn't really drift apart at university. We were still really good friends, but other people came into our lives. Eventually, I ended up with a long-term girlfriend and several friends who I formed a going out group with, and eventually I invited them into our geek circles to partake in my other side of my life at university. Most of them loved it, mainly because Kill Team is absolutely fucking awesome for getting new people into the hobby. You are right there, my friend, you are right there. I think One Page Rules is better for doing that, but if you want to get into the 40k side, then yeah, Kill Team is a good official game from Games Workshop to get people into the hobby with. But it's just as complicated as 40k in some ways. It's weird. Anyway, moving on. The thing is, Will never really gelled with these guys. My girlfriend pointed out to me that he may feel a little threatened by this legion of new friends I had brought into our sphere, and maybe even a little jealous of them taking up my time. like I was moving on from him or something. Eventually, this ended up in an argument between me and Will when I was going out one evening, and he gave me an attitude for it that I called him out on. In brackets, we were doing a house share at the time. I'd had a stressful week, and he told me straight that it felt like I was a different person now, and he was alone. I didn't really want to hear it though. I told him just to come out with us if he wanted to, and if he wanted to be a part of things, to join in the geek stuff. But I was not going to just sit in with him and be miserable. I wanted him out with me. I always invited him with me and wanted him there, but that just wasn't him. I was not going to change him against his will. He accepted that, but still, he stayed in and I went out. Okay, well that's fair enough. I think this is a fair drifting apart in friendships. This happens, right? This is not a huge thing. This happens. It's not a huge tragedy. It's not nice, but it is what it is. Try and make sure you keep your friends around whenever you can, but recognise, you know, life changes and circumstances change, and if you don't change together, then you may end up not being as good friends as you were, and there's nothing wrong with that. You're two different people with two different needs. Not wrong with that at all. Moving on. It was a few weeks later when I walked into his room, bad idea guys, don't do that, in brackets, and found him making out with a guy. Oh wow, okay. Alright. Now, I'm not homophobic or anything, but it was a shock to see my best friend is all of a sudden gay, or at least bi. Like an idiot, I assumed this was acting out, a phase or something like that, as he'd been quite erratic in his moods for a good period now. Yeah, you will get shouted at for things like that, for saying that it's just a phase, but at the end of the day, if you know your friend, and you know that he's been, like, really acting erratically, and he's been feeling abandoned, you know, yeah, I can see him being a bit confused. Even if he's not, I can see him being a bit confused in this situation. So I can see why you made that jump mentally. Even his mum asked me to talk to him. In fact, I was heading to his room to do just that when I caught him with the other guy. I excused myself, and I heard him bawling, crying in the room behind me, probably out of embarrassment and whatever he was already going through. Yeah, man, if he's already going through some shit and he's not sure that he's even gay, and then you catch him, like the one guy who he's, like, you know, close to and also arguing with. Yeah, man, that sucks. That sucks. I'm not going to judge him for that. That's really terrible. Like dudes, we settled the atmosphere over a 2,000 point game of 40k. It went pretty well until the end when we were tallying up points. His Eldar were ahead of my Black Templars, but we disagreed on a key charge length at the end of the game that ended up with me pulling ahead of him in the points. He was a little pissed, and, me being me, I gave it to him right back, not getting what the fuck his deal was. Just fucking forget it, this was a bad idea, he said, slamming his models back into his case and making to walk away. I asked him to talk to me, and he just shouted at me that I clearly didn't get it, quote unquote. Okay. The plot thickens. The plot thickens. I was going to say it, man. I think he's got something. I think he's not got it in for you, but I think he's got some unrequited feelings for you here. That's just what I'm getting from the general gist of it. I'm probably wrong, and I'm sorry if I am. But anyway, moving on. From here, ironically, things started to naturally repair themselves between us with time. Will and my girlfriend Sarah, same one as before, never really got on. And with her being German, she was not backwards about telling him that his attitude around her fucking stank. She was right, but I was just happy to have my friend right and have him around. Oh, cool, that's cool, that's cool. Eventually, as we got into the third year of university, things calmed down with my social life. I was now in my mid-20s, in a relationship that was now serious, and so were the stakes in my studies to get good grades in history and politics. Go me. Because of this, me and Will started spending a lot more time together, and he started mending himself again, which was amazing to see. Okay, I'm noticing whenever he starts mending himself and getting better in this story, it's always around you. Do you know what I mean? I think there's some unrequited feelings here, and I hope it doesn't end badly for both of you. Anyway. That brings me to where the happy years end in our mid-20s. We both lived in Nottingham, which is a great 40k scene, and we lived an awesome life. People said we reminded them of those two mates from Scrubs, and he finally started to thaw towards Sarah. Eventually, though, Sarah started asking me to move to Germany, where she had a top job waiting for her at her parents' law firm if she wanted it. She'd always wanted to work with them and take over their business. My work as a political analyst, not as dry as it seems, in brackets, is mainly remote these days, and being in the EU would be more of a help to my company than a hindrance. We'd started talking about kids and all that, so I eventually agreed to her suggestions to move. When I told Will, he accepted in a solemn manner. No shouting or anger like I was expecting, and he just got on with things. One day, we went to a local hobby store and played a rip-roaring game of 40k, whereas Eldar pulled out a ridiculously close victory. Afterwards, he told me he was getting out of the hobby as there was no one else to play it with locally, and really, his work was getting really serious. He was a lecturer these days at a local college. He asked me if I wanted, I could take some of his Eldar army to Germany with me to try and get Sarah into the hobby a little bit more. She'd always mentioned how pretty they were, and her interest was budding in the law. Okay, that's cool. I thanked him profusely for the gesture, told him to stay in the hobby, as there were loads of people to play in Nottingham, and we went out for a quiet round of drinks afterwards. He told me he'd found a boyfriend. Okay, cool. But he was still not sure how that was going to go. When we hugged and said goodbye, he was a little bit teary, and as I was leaving in a few days, I told him we'd head out again before I went to Germany, and he had to come out there to see us in a few weeks when the summer break kicked in and he had no real work going on at university. He agreed quite happily. Alright, that's cool, that's cool. Now, if you'd like to stop reading so your listeners get their happy ending here, that is totally fine. From here, it gets a little heavy, so if you wanted to think to yourself that we are still friends and he came over here to Germany, that is all well and good. Right? Ready? Here we go. Okay, that is your content warning, I guess. I'm gonna cut away from there for a minute and have a little sip of tea. That is your content warning. We've been told it's getting a little bit heavy, so it's Friday. If you want to have a nice Friday with no downers, then, you know, leave now. Oh, I love Yorkshire tea, man. I love Yorkshire tea. It's just wonderful. Wonderful stuff. Yeah, so if you don't want a downer, I don't know how much of a downer this is going to be. I don't know whether this guy's going to end up bitching about him or the friendship's going to break down. But we'll see. Right, you ready? Right, 1, 2, 3. Let's carry on. The phone goes the next day. It's Will's mother. She tells me his boyfriend found him that morning having taken his own life. Oh, for fuck's sake. Apparently with pills and alcohol. He had laid out several letters addressed to the people in his life, and one of them was to me. I headed straight over there and threw myself into the only thing I could do, pushing down my own heartbreak and tears and helping his mum deal with all of this. Dude, you are a fucking hero, mate. You do not, please don't think I'm talking down to you when I say that. You are an absolute fucking hero. That is the hardest thing you could ever want to do. Like that, but you have that shock and rage and devastation and sadness and everything going on inside of you, and you push all down to help his mother. That is, you're a great one, mate. You're good. You are good in my book. That is an amazing thing to be able to do. I won't go into the details of the day, if you don't mind. No, I don't mind. That's all your grieving process, mate. No, I don't mind at all. When I got home that night and sat in Sarah's arms, she's a diamond. Yeah, cool, cool. I read the letter he had written for me. Okay. It's going to be bad. The police had already gone over it and asked me if I wanted to keep it, and I did. Okay. In the letter, he told me that he'd always loved me, truly and deeply, and in a romantic sense. I'm not even going to say, I told you so, because I'm not in the mood anymore, to be honest with you. In the letter, he told me that he'd always loved me, truly and deeply, and in a romantic sense, and that not being able to be with me had been kind of the thorn in his heart all of these years. He did not blame me, did not admonish me, or anything like that. This was his burden to bear, and now he wanted to put it down. He was damaged beyond that situation between us, and likely, so he said, would have ended up in this exact place regardless, maybe even sooner, had I not been in his life to help him along. He signed off that he hoped I had a wonderful life with lots of children with Sarah, and that he truly wished the best for us, but now it was time to say goodbye. Okay. I'm going to read the end of this, and then I'm going to get into some advice, because you do ask for advice here. I'm scanning ahead. And that was it. He was gone. That was a year ago now, and I'm still trying to wrap my head around it. I am in Germany going great guns with Sarah, but I will be honest, it really hammered us as a couple, totally, and it still does from time to time. I have nightmares about Will and letting him down. I won't go into them, obviously. The hobby used to be my solace, but now it just reminds me of this one big failure where I didn't see the pain in my friend until it was too late. What do I do here? Where do I go? And I swear to God, I'll curse you if you bring up that bloody Discord again. I love it there, but I need one-to-one talks with people. Love you, Byron. Okay. Alright. So, one thing I will say is this is not your fault. I'm gonna come out and say that right now, right? This is not your fault. And in a weird way, fuck this guy for leaving the meal early and leaving you with the tab. Okay? I will never, ever, ever blame somebody for getting to this stage in their life where they need to take such drastic measures, right? We've all been close. I've been close. Okay? I get that. But, the one thing that made me not do that is the heartbreak that I'd leave behind, and eventually I rebuilt my life. And I know so many other people who've been in that situation, where the one thing that pulls them back is that they've got kids, or they've got a wife, or they've got people who love them, who would really devastate them if they left, and they stay for that, and eventually they work things out, because it's either that or remain miserable their entire lives, and eventually they work things out. For this guy to do that and then tell you that you were not one of the reasons, but his unrequited feelings for you were one of the reasons that drove him to this, that is not fair. That is not fair on you. Okay? Now, I would never speak ill of this guy. He made a completely devastating decision, and I can only imagine the pain he was going through, but I don't really agree with the decision. Again, he's not thinking in his right mind, but with the decision to cathartically get it off his chest and tell you that as he's on his way out the door. To me, that's that analogy I just said. You're at a meal together that's very expensive. He's walked out and left you with the tab. He's left you to pay the bill. And the bill is making sure his mother and his family is okay. The bill is dealing with that guilt for the rest of your life. It doesn't matter what I say here. You're going to carry around that guilt for the rest of your days. And that's not fair. All you've done in this story, from what I can see, is lived your life normally. You've not gone out of your way to hurt him. You've tried to bring him in and make sure that he's involved. You've tried to make sure that he's given every chance to have happiness in his life. And the one thing you didn't see is you didn't see the absolutely seismic effect that you were having on keeping him in his world. And the minute you had to take that away, quite rightly, because you've got to live your life, that's when he decided to check out. Right? This is not your fault. Categorically. Categorically not your fault. And Sorry, my voice is going here a little bit. It's a bit emotional. It hits me in the feels. Give me a minute. These are always the hardest ones to read out. So, yeah, this isn't your fault at all, at all. The only failing you have, and it's not really a failing because you've got to live your own life, is not knowing how much of a crutch he was using you for. And I think the one thing he says in that letter is quite right. He would have been gone a lot sooner without you. Right? That's the only difference here. Okay? You had nothing to do with the decision that he made. The decision that he made was his. From what he said in that letter, what you said, what you told me, he would have been gone years ago if not for you. You've kept him sane. You've kept him happy, right? And you kept him around. And the minute you've made that decision to actually go somewhere else, he's made the decision to check out. At some point, your mental health is your responsibility. I think it's your responsibility all the time, to be honest with you. But at some point, it's definitely your responsibility. You're the person who's got to pay the tab. You're the person who's got to be left with the bill for your own decisions. But this is what happens when you stick your self-worth and your reason for living on somebody who isn't just unattainable, but is utterly unattainable. Utterly unattainable, because they're not interested in you in that way. This is the end result of taking that to the extreme. This is tragic, mate, and my heart goes out to Will's family and goes out to him as well. You say in your postscript that you did change his name here, which is fine, no problem. But I'm gonna be honest, dude. Like, this is not your fault. This is a decision that he made, knowing what devastation it was going to cause. I'm not going to blame him. I do not blame him at all. There's some people just feel the need to check out and they don't want to deal with the pain anymore. And you know what? If that's you, my heart goes out to you. I wish you all the best, but I sincerely hope that you realise that there are people here who love you, who want to be around you, who appreciate you, and you know, and here's the thing. I had an email a couple of weeks ago now from a guy. I'm not going to say his name because I don't want to keep bringing him up, but you know, he's been on the Discord and now he's had a chat to a few people under a different username anonymously, which is fine, completely fine. I've exchanged emails with him. I've had phone calls with him. That guy was on his last legs a few weeks ago, but through sheer human comfort and interaction and understanding, he's crawling his way out of that hole. He's on his way. He's doing well. And sorry, I'm fucking tearing up here. I'm going man up. Okay. So yeah, he's doing really well. And it just goes to show that no one's beyond redemption in that way. It's a weird word, redemption, but you know what I mean. No one's beyond crawling out of it. It just takes human persistence and coming back and saying, look, I've got you. Like, we're here together, we're doing this. The problem with this situation is there were a lot of other feelings dialed up in there as well that eventually drove him to do the unthinkable. And in all honesty, the signs are there in what you've written. The signs are there. That's horrible, dude. I cannot even fathom what you went through there. I cannot even go into and the strength you showed to give compassion to his family and to be there for them, to still be there for them now. I can see in the postscript. You've asked me not to read, but I can see in the postscript. You know, you're still in touch with his family, still doing well with them, mate. You're an absolute hero. None of this is on you, at all. Right? None of this is on you. What a guy. Like, enjoy. And do you know what? I don't know many Black Templar players who aren't fucking chads. I honestly don't. I honestly don't know many Black Templar players who aren't awesome dad material. It's weird. It's a weird phenomenon. But mate, listen, if you want to email me, talk to me, no problem. Come on the Discord, talk to people there. I know you told me not to mention it, but there you go. The advice that I've given you is literally what I think. That's my advice to you, right? Take the pain, look at it, acknowledge it, and move on. Therapy needs to happen here. Go and get yourself some therapy. In the EU, I know it's a lot better. Getting therapy is a lot easier to get. So make sure when you're in Germany, you go and get some help. Get yourself some help from somebody who's going to help you through this. Work through it. It may take a year, it may take 2 years. Work through it. And do not let this drive that woman away. Right? Do not let this be the anchor around the neck of your relationship, because I think that Will wouldn't want that. He said it himself. Okay? Do not let it do that. You've got to be there for the people around you. You've got to be a rock for the people around you. But I'm being honest, man. Do not build the foundation. Be the foundation for everybody else in your life, no problem. But don't do that on some sand. Because if you don't deal with this, you're doing it on sand. And eventually that's going to crumble and go away. And everybody's going to be in the devastation. Everybody's going to be in the shit. And the cycle will continue. The cycle will continue. So please, I'm telling you now, as an impartial person, this was not your fault. At all. I've given you my reasons why. Right? Also, therapy. Go and get some. Go and get some therapy. And be honest with them on why you want it, why you need it. You need some counselling. That's what you need. Serious, serious stuff. Do not bottle this up and carry on. Because I know lads like you who want to help everybody else around them. That's what they do. They bottle this up and they move on. And eventually, they're either dragged down by it or they explode. Don't let that happen. You owe it to yourself to go to therapy, to go to counselling, to sort this shit out. Because you can't be at the top of your game for the people you love unless you deal with this. Alright? I have some numbers for people in the UK that you can call, so email me. They're good therapists, they're good counsellors, just email me and I'll pass them over to you. And if you want people in Germany, internet is your friend, or I can help you look, no problem, but mate, get this sorted out, okay? Alright. But number one, this was not your fault. If I have the power to absolve you of guilt, there you go, gone, right? This is not your fault. I don't have that power, but Finna could reach out and make you see that it's not. Anyway. Enough of all that. I'm going to go and have a shower and a blubber. And, and I love you all a long time. I'll speak to you on Monday for some more hobby nightmares. Yeah. Love you all. There's always somebody here for you. Always. So just carry on. Keep on keeping on. Love you all. Speak to you later. Have a good one. Bye now.